Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Guthrow, another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. Today, I have as a guest Peter Swimm. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thanks for having me, David.
So, Peter, one of the things that I never know how people came to hear about this podcast and things like that. So it doesn't really matter. But when I did look a little bit at your website, and one of the things, a phrase that you used was conversational AI. And, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Now, there's probably listeners who are very familiar with ChatGPT and Perplexity and Grok and all kinds of things like that, and others that are not. So maybe we could just start with you describing what, in your view, artificial intelligence is, just so we have that as a baseline.
Yeah. Well, artificial intelligence has been beaten to death. So, there's so many things. It's just like a computer from the very onset was posited as being artificial intelligence, going back to the punch card days, and we still as a society don't know what intelligence is. For the purpose of this conversation, when I say conversational AI or I say workplace automation or intelligence, I'm really just talking about computer programs, but instead of you typing at it, you talk to it.
Okay. So I'm curious specifically about conversational AI and how that's different from other forms of AI. And things I'd like to get into are, when might someone use it? What are some good reasons for it? And by the way, I did a prompt the other day to ChatGPT, and I said, so when are some of the times when you recommend not using ChatGPT? And it came up with some very interesting responses, many of which I see people actually using it for. But we won't go, that's a separate conversation. So when might someone use it? When will it be advantageous to use any kind of AI? And then I'd like to understand a little bit more about conversational AI. So when would someone use AI? What are the benefits? So either in a business, in an organization, for anybody.
Yeah, the genesis of conversational AI started in businesses that involve communication, so support, FAQ, search. You can even consider like Google search and web browsers was the early form of conversational AI because the way people interact with these things, they don't say like, what year was the War of 1812? And between who or whatever they do like a conversational question. They're like, tell me something about the War of 1812 or whatever. And so this simulacrum of conversation existed for a long time in a way to mass search. And the early conversational AI, you may remember a product called Ask Jeeves, where they personified the chatbot, the tax box. And so when the answer came back, it came in the form of a person talking to you versus a list of facts. And I think we kind of evolved out of that for whatever reason into magazine format responses. But there's still a lot of communities and products and stuff that wanted to retain that conversational feel. Like, I don't want to just read a website. I want to talk to the website. I want to call the bank, but instead of having to press 9 and 1 and all that, I can just say what I want and express it in communication terms. And all that's really great when you are a wizard casting spells. You're like, you're saying like, computer, show me my records, and that works pretty well, provided you're in the, 5% of the world that speaks perfect Californian English, it, and the things that keep it from being more sophisticated was really CPU power. We would train these things on models, and for it to work in the time that it took to just not take forever, we need very fast computers. And the thing that really lucked out for the entire world was video gamers got super popular, and people made like Xboxes and stuff with really fast GPUs. And a little company called NVIDIA, who used to make video cards for gamers, all of a sudden realized, oh, we can use this for the really fast CPU that we need to do almost real time, what we call inference, which is like where we take what you say and turn it into underlying computer words that it knows what to speak with. And I could do it on every language in any nationality, in any locality at once. And also, it's a really good predictor of what happens next in the sentence. So when you're using ChatGPT, you're playing a pachinko machine with the entire brain of the internet. And so, when it says, you're playing a game of 20 questions and it's statistically geared towards giving you the right answer the first time. And so when you see like hallucinations and stuff like that, it's just because something in the way that you asked, for whatever reason in the math, boiled out to thinking that was an appropriate response. And so, in the early days of my industry, it was like if it didn't know, it would say, I'm sorry, I don't know. I can only help you look up your bank account, or I can only do this. And now it's like it refuses to admit it's wrong or incorrect, and it'll just vibe with it. And this vibing, I think, is like what people are running into problems where they go into court with a deposition citing cases that never existed and handing
Oh,
in homework, like, and all those things are like we they say, oh, it's hallucinations, because I think hallucinations implies that they'll be at some point able to fix it, and I think they're inherent to the system, and the only way to fix it is to move on to the next generation of systems, and it's just not going to happen with this current stack unless you do things from the user side, not from the company side.
so let me just diverge here for a sec, because one of the things that drives me a wee bit crazy, I go into a lot of sites that have chatbots. Some
Mm,
of them are very, very good, and others are stupid. Like they're kind of, from my perspective, they're ones like you just described that if you ask them a question they don't understand, they
mm.
just kind of blank out. So they're, although the technology may be available to get better and better, some companies don't seem to be embracing it, because now you have one good experience and that becomes my expectation what all chatbots would be, and it ends up being just frustration when I don't get the same sort of experience with them.
Yeah, I've had one great chatbot experience in the last 10 years. And here's what happened. I was flying Delta, which I'm already poised for problems. And I'm flying through Atlanta, so I'm even more geared for problems. And sure enough, my next flight was canceled right in the middle of going on the train to go there. And I got a text from Delta from the chat bot. It says, hey, I'm sorry, your flight was canceled. Here are two other flights. Uh, that we could book you on. One leaves in 90 minutes, another one leaves in 2 hours, but the one in 90 minutes is closer, so you can make. And like this is how I inferred it, but it just gave me the information, and I clicked the button, and it happened, and it went away. So like a two-turn interaction that was conversational, but really it was just it just gave me a button, right? And I think what people fall into this trap of, especially when you personify these things, is that you're like thinking you're getting a secretary, or you're getting like someone who's really capable, when really you're just getting a button that thinks it's people.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned something a little bit earlier about it. Some of the changes have to come more at the user side
Mm,
than on the technology side for now. And I see more and more courses on prompting, prompt magic, using prompt stacks and things like that. Which I guess it's good that you have to train your customers. That's kind of where we're at with this. But how would someone use AI? So when we first started chatting, I was hesitant to let you do this to me or for me.
mm.
But so your company, tell me a little bit about your company first.
Okay,
Let's set the
cool.
context I'm about to ask you to do.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been in tech my entire adult life, and usually people are like turning the radio off right now, right? Um, because it's like, oh, like he's like
Well,
some
Peter, you
like
only look like you're 16, so right, it's not like a lie.
thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know. When I was 16, people thought I was 40, so I think I just been 40 for 40 years. So like, um, but the thank you for the flattery. I think the thing that I've actually worked many, many, many different roles in many, many different companies. And I kind of stumbled into the conversational AI space. And from there, I've worked for like Walmart and Microsoft building tools to build these things. So I'm not like focused like the people who make your chatbot on the website on solving the chatbot problem. I'm actually I'm talking to the people who are work, I need to understand what we're trying to augment and support versus like, trying to solve a computer solution. And that kind of led me to start my own consultancy, Toyoville. And at Toyoville, we believe there's no such thing as automated agents, like this future being posited by the Microsofts and the ChatGPTs of the world is inherently flawed because it assumes that a properly designed corporation can run autonomously without input and print money. And the reality is that there's like people squirreled away throughout every level of every company in the world that like make stuff happen in spite of corporate organization. And I try to help small and medium businesses look at automation in a way that like supports what makes them unique and small and interesting, and also like in a way that doesn't like chain them at the hip to a company that kind of wants to replace them. Like they want there to be the three companies at the top of the model, and everyone is just like using them, and there's nothing in the middle. So, I think it behooves people to kind of start, stay local, be
Right.
artisanal about your AI, and understand what you're getting into when you like buy a thing like Copilot or ChatGPT.
So that's very helpful for context. So now you talked about working with, small and medium-sized businesses.
Mm,
My business is definitely in the small business category.
mm,
In fact, it's just me. But if you're willing to, what kind of questions? How would you work with me to figure
okay.
this out? So if I could be kind of
Yeah.
a demo,
Yeah, yeah. And this is I have office hours where I give away free on my LinkedIn, so if people want to track me down, ask me questions. I love this. This is my morning crossword puzzle. So like everyone gets up in the day and they know what they want to do, right? Uh, the fact that they want to do something is only vaguely connected to the way they do it, right? Because like some people are passionate about the perfect PowerPoint. They're out there. And there's some people who just want to like give the PowerPoint and don't want to work on the PowerPoint. And you don't have anyone to delegate to, you're a single person and you got to wear many hats. How do you use AI to transform the thing you're good at into the things you struggle with, but still make it sound like you and be you and all that? So
okay?
I would tell you to think about your stack. Like what is like the thing in your stack that drives you crazy, but
So
you
okay,
can't
whoa,
find
whoa, whoa,
anything better?
whoa. Okay, let's back up. When
Okay,
you say the
sure.
stack, there may be a lot of people
Yeah,
that
sure.
haven't got a clue what you're talking about there when you say stack.
Uh, a stack could be I write stuff in a notebook, or I record voice memos and then I play them back to myself and copy them into a computer, or I take leads from my website, or I read the news. I think it's just the way that you work with information throughout the day, uh, and hopefully make money off it. So
Okay,
like,
okay,
let's just like let's make it as expansive as possible and not talk about like you know, I paid for Office, or
right.
whatever. Let's just kind of talk about like because and I like to do this in a jobs to be done framework that is kind of like agnostic to I'm a Mac or a PC or any of that kind of stuff
So what?
because
So what are the outcomes or what are the outputs?
I think the outcome is a lot of my clients don't know the work that they do to do the work, but they know their outcomes, and they so everyone is very, very like, I know how much money I have to make today. I know my daily, weekly, monthly nut. I don't think people understand like when is enough work in the day enough for me to do that and also do all the other things I want to do with my life.
Okay,
And I and so this becomes and I kind of talked to you about this before the call. This becomes almost like therapy session because people kind of have a parasocial relationship with what work is, and in this country we think people who work hard succeed. And a lot of the people in tech who are very successful and famous, you tell they're not hard workers. They just like either got lucky or they found one cool trick first or whatever. And I think when a person's small and they're not like at the levels of the Gates and the Musks of the world,
mhm,
being small and looking for openings is your competitive advantage. So
mm,
I want to optimize that time where you're not copy and pasting artifacts into different file containers and stuff like that all day. I want you to think about that as the first step of automation. But most people aren't at the first step because they don't know how much a unit of work costs. So they can't evaluate what is the
uh,
first thing they should automate.
okay. So do me
Okay. Okay. So
just a
like,
just a practice run.
okay, you've rolled out of bread, you brushed your teeth, you had your breakfast, and you sit down wherever you work. What do you do first?
Um, so I'm assuming that people listening to this is a judgment-free zone, just as a warning, right? So
And yeah,
so
yeah.
not to you, to the listeners.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And I want to make it clear, and I always make this clear in my workshop is like, there's no wrong answers for how you get work done if the goal is to do work, right? Like we're just looking for opportunities of like people like have like their favorite thing that like you know I like working in my garage, and I have my favorite screwdrivers, my hammer that is the good hammer and the bad hammer. Let's think of the tools like that. There's no like Mac PC wars going on here. So
Okay.
please go ahead.
So when I get up and come down to my office, even on the way down, or even if I'm going on my spin bike for a while, I take a look at a few commentators that are sort of non-traditional broadcasters, like Heather Cox Richardson, David Packman, Brian Cohen, some folks like that, just to find out what craziness is going on in your country. I'm presuming you're in the United States.
Mm,
And then when I get onto my computer, turn it on, the first thing that I do is, I'll probably look for very quickly for messages from friends first, clients second, things that I have to do, bills to pay third. I'll probably go on to Facebook to maybe make a post, see what's going on, comment where
mm,
appropriate. Occasionally on LinkedIn, on Tuesdays, it's a little bit different because I announce the fact that there's a new podcast out. So I do that on Facebook and LinkedIn and go to Cast Magic and draw
mm,
scripts off of that, modify that to put that up. Um, then, unfortunately, there's no real routine. So I'll describe some of
mm.
the other things I do if that would be helpful.
Yeah. No, and also I'd be interested, like you do these things. How focused are you? Like, do you kind of like, is this like a walk in your garden and you're trimming, or are you saying, okay, it's 9 o'clock, time to update Facebook?
It's definitely not the latter.
Yeah.
No, it's
And,
pretty
and
casual, and
and and
especially since
do you like that? Does it is it do you run into things that also helps your day like through that process, or are you kind of like uh do you not want to be distracted as easily? Like because the point I make is like a lot of people treat Facebook as their website, but Facebook is also a casino of your attention, right? And so there's people who want to reduce that lure and they'll do automation. And there's people like, you know what, I might see something interesting and it's fine, and I'll do that. And so
uh,
that's like the first time the first thing I get to people thinking about like, well, you could just automate everything from one place and never see these websites. But if you get value from going to the websites and post it as they intended you to do it, then you should keep doing that.
yeah, no, I mostly use it as a distraction.
Hmm.
To be honest, sometimes with things that are interesting, it's very easy to go down a rat hole. I'm
Yeah.
there's a book by Nur Eyal called Indistractable that I read, and I need to practice
Hmm.
on. It's how to avoid being distracted. So sometimes, I will do that. Other times not. I don't have a disciplined routine. I guess the other thing that's happened recently is after having over 40 years an office to go to outside the home, because the building my office was in is being torn down to be redeveloped,
Hmm.
I've had to move home,
Hmm.
which I've been for let's see, about the last 2 weeks, and I still haven't settled into a new routine.
Hmm.
But other things that I'll do, I'll record videos. I use Facebook socially. I don't use it for business building at all. I'm on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. Do I use LinkedIn? No. Could I use LinkedIn? Yes, but I don't. I don't have a process for prospecting. I will occasionally call up previous clients to connect with them to see how they're doing. Um, I'm putting together some marketing material right now, but it's not something that's routinized. So, yeah, so there's some things that I do.
Hmm.
Can I
Okay.
be saved?
No, I mean, I don't hear anything broken if you don't. So, let's just and this is the kind of way I think about like people think about automating. Like I need to be more efficient. It's just like I've not heard any time crunch problems yet. Like if you're enjoying yourself in the process, and I think this is kind of like where the my this is where like management and workers in my workshop start to diverge, right? Because like uh there's a lot of arguments in physics that time isn't real, but time is a measurement tool to arbitrate the flow of things from the past to the present, and that's how we all make money. So we're really into time, and if you go to Microsoft's Copilot as a developer, they have a tool called ROI, and they measure it in seconds. Because seconds, like they're billable hours, right? And that's not why we build software for small people and businesses. We're not trying to be more efficient, because then we would just hire robots. And some people want to do that, but we want to make work better for people, and we want to like offload cognitive load and things that are like painful, like, you know, it's, kids have calculators for school and graphing calculators for higher order math. And these AIs are kind of like executive function calculators in a way, where you can kind of like pair off and do things, and also maybe come up with ways to automate stuff that is menial for you. A menial being like low grade work, like so.
So let me give you a couple of examples. One of the ways I use ChatGPT, but something that'd be helpful to automate. So for ChatGPT, I don't really use Google too much anymore. Like
Mm,
I went to ChatGPT and was very conversational and said, so a friend of mine's coming into town. He's looking for a motel that's close to these intersections on these dates. What's
mm,
available. So it came up with this list of these ones on exactly the street I said, and it checked out how much they're going to be. So as a search engine, it saved a lot of time. It wasn't adding a lot of intelligence to it, but it was sure making things faster. I will
uh,
use it if I have a bunch of different, if I'm online and I have 250 people, they go into breakout rooms, they come up with a bunch of different ideas. I'll have it clustered together and look for themes. So again, that's
mm,
not a lot of intelligence. It's stuff that I could do, but it's faster. But the
mm,
thing that were from an efficiency standpoint, this might apply for some of our listeners. So I'll just think about my podcast. So my process for the podcast, I send a URL out. Someone gets onto my calendar. I record the podcast, and then after that, I have to use three different programs: Cast, Magic, Buzzsprout, Altitude, to pull it all together. Then, then every Tuesday morning, I get on and I go to Cast Magic. I pull off some clip that I can put on Facebook along with the URLs for Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and then do the same thing on LinkedIn that mushes it all together. And I just realized I've been doing this for almost 2 years. The same thing. Like there's some
mm,
slight modifications of what text I add, but it's not, first of all, this podcast makes me no money. It's a cash out kind
mm.
of thing, but it's a time consumer, and I allow it to distract me, right? So it's not building my business. So something like that, I would love that to be automated. I have no idea how to go about doing it.
Yes. Well, I have good news for you. That is very automatable. But backing up, uh, I think a lot of people have a mixture of that, right? They have a mixture of like, there's a difference between like mise en place. You're a chef, and this is in the kitchen. This is my tools, and this is the way I prepare my tools before I cook. And then there's like the work before the work, right? Which is like sometimes a pain in the butt, right? Like it's like stuff that just like you have to work yourself up to, or it's like the downer part of it, and it's not why you're doing it. And these are the things that we should be looking at automation.
Right.
And I think when you're doing it from the top down, you're only thinking about that. Well, we need to have 6,000 less minutes of waste this quarter, and it's just like, what does that even mean? Like, like it is like taking a break to look at a celebrity gossip site really that much of a hindrance to someone who's a high performer and needs to cool their brain off for a couple minutes so they can think at a higher level because they are like that cool and left-brained, but they just need to like look at a mauve picture for 20 minutes, and like depressurize. And I think they're like mutually incompatible visions, and they're kind of forcing that system on you. So like, like what if someone came to you one day and says, well, yes, we want you to join our podcast network, but you have to use our software. And it's 10 more steps, but it's the only way you can do it. And that's what getting a job at an enterprise company is like. Like it's just like uh, it completely negates why you hire a person, right? You hire a person because of their track record of doing cool and interesting things. And then you strip them down for parts and ship them over the border. And like and I say this as a person who sold a company to Microsoft twice. Like it there's no outcome of going into an enterprise of change from within, and those who succeed are the ones who adapt, right? And as individuals successful, or like you you're doing things because you want to, right? So
Mhm.
you have a lot more leverage to just play with things. And if you have no interest in playing with things, you should just buy things. Like you should buy the software and not build the software to do
Yep.
things, because
Yep.
that's that's not why you want to do a podcast. And fortunately, there's hundreds of programs out there that are geared towards someone like you, and all you need is time and money to try them,
Right.
and AI can help you whittle that down. So like, the scenario that you said you used GPT for was like the golden scenario in conversational AI for the last 15 years. And it was just so hard before AI because the way it would work is in a waterfall fashion. So in a waterfall fashion, you are a search box that only books flights, right? And so when someone says hi, the next question is, where do you want to go? Right.
Right.
And so if you happen to say all the things you said at the top, it'll like take all the possible questions in the chain that's already been written and slot fill them. So it's just a little like, Mad Libs all the way down. And if you were very lucky and you said it exactly the way it was trained, the next thing would be confirm ticket, you know, and that was like the holy grail for 10 years of people like trying to do stuff. And like, they're like, executives will come to me like, well, can I tell jokes? Or can I do this? And all the things that ChatGPT is supposed to do now. But now people have it and they're like, oh wait, no, this is garish and awful. Like, you know, I want you to be smart and professional first, and then charming and creative and like a person second.
Yeah.
And so like the way we had it was like you would harden it to only like, I can only help you book flights, sir. I'm sorry. And then pass it off to a person. And then now you can never have to pass it off to a person, but you're trapped with a dullard or you're trapped with like, someone who's mansplaining you on things that are obviously untrue. So
Wow. Okay. So, if one of the listeners was asking themselves, should I use AI? What are
yeah,
some questions that they would answer themselves, and how would they go about figuring
yeah.
out if they actually could or should?
Well, I think it really depends on the outcome. Like I just did a workshop where I trained a pharmaceutical company. They're going to buy Copilot. And for them, it's a very good use case because
So, I better explain Copilot. Not everyone knows
yeah,
what
yeah.
Copilot is.
Copilot is Microsoft's flavor of ChatGPT. So Microsoft, imagine ChatGPT went to Wharton and got a suit and tie and cut his hair and learned all the rules of enterprise compliance. So like, so so you can talk to it and do everything ChatGPT could do. ChatGPT was only really interested in Microsoft Office products. So, so you can like say like, uh, in the meeting last week, what did Tim say about the financial statement from last quarter? And it'll give you a summary and a link to watch the video from the Teams meeting, and it'll offer to create a PowerPoint slide for it, and it'll offer to create like slides and graphs of the numbers that was said and research the validity of them, and super useful if you're in that light, right?
Right.
Like, and because it's tied into Microsoft, of course, it supports all the enterprise compliance. So like if Bill was in the meeting and Tom, your CFO was in the meeting and Todd shared a file, but didn't share the file with people and no one has access to it, it won't go and spill the beans on the pages it didn't see. And all that corporations are important and they're more concerning for that than they are for like being, it's all about what's actionable, right? What's like, and so, and you use it very, uh, very helpful. But is product and everyone uses things like Word and so is like telling years I've been in meetings for music sells project management tool. Not no math, no formulas. I'm just typing things in a grid,
Yeah.
and the Copilot for Excel it completely ignores that scenario because I have a product for you. It's they're frustrated because they're like, "Which one do we use?" I'm like, Microsoft doesn't have an opinion. You know, they have big enough customers for each one of those things that they keep making those products, and you're left with like a suggestion tool that doesn't know you, doesn't know which one you want to use or can use, and so it makes assumptions for you. And so that's not the frustrating thing about AI because unless they know every little thing about you, they're gonna get it wrong. They're gonna lose, or at least reason hallucinate, like make an hallucination that is like all part, but like still just no, I don't like pralines in my ice cream, kind of mistakes. And I think the answer from Microsoft is like, well, that's cool. You just log in and give your entire soul of your company to our model and AI, and we'll keep it safe for you. Promise. And that's a non-starter for a lot of people. A lot of companies, like there's companies who their intranet is air gapped from the internet. Like you can't reach the outside world when you're inside the company. And so Microsoft is working on-prem Copilot for them, but it's just like they may have been better off just building their own, and that's kind of like the build or buy problem, right? But I think at the heart of it, you and me as people, we have a process and we use computers despite their inefficiencies because we are rewarded most of the time with cool things like you can record a podcast in your house. You don't have to book a studio in the city with a 32 channel console that smells like spilled beer and come in once a week to record it. You can do everything at home. And that's a successful outcome of technology. And what isn't a successful outcome is like using 7 programs to do it, I think, you know.
So, I'm just thinking of sort of answering my own question that I asked you, but what should people think about it? And for me, like I want to have more time to do the things that I'm passionate about. So for
Mm,
example, I'm passionate about having these conversations. I'm not passionate about booking them, about uploading them, about linking the front end, all that other stuff together. Like anything that would let me just do more of the stuff that I love to do, the rest easily. So it might be walking my dog. I might be spending time with my wife or with my daughter or with my dog or whatever. So like
mhm,
anything that's not and this is probably being really brutal, but if I could strip out everything that uh, just allows me to do things that I'm passionate about, that would be worth so much to me in terms of lifestyle, joy, all those other kinds of things. I mean,
mm.
is that a reasonable place for people to start to think about this? Like, what is it that I'm passionate about that I want to have more time to do?
Yeah, I think so. And I think like you can even gauge like what is your how much you want to take on to make that happen, right? Like so like I could tell you that the entire industry of software technology can make everything automatable and have the interface you want if you want to like pay to build it either in time or consulting or whatever. Okay, and that is usually the first like we don't have that kind of money. Cool, we can't do or the expertise. We're not going to do this. Like okay, well then I would tell you there's industries of hundreds of software applications, hardware, and tools that do what you described to me as a SaaS service. And SaaS meaning you log into the website, you me
Sorry, sorry, SaaS, sorry, service.
software service, yeah, software as a service, and that's like Gmail, right? That is, Word when on your desktop, in the this is not an advertisement for those services, but like I mean, and that's kind of like how software industry does things. That as long as you pay rent for the rest of your life to a company and hope they don't go under, or hope they don't get bought, or don't hope they don't pivot to AI or any other of the things that happens to companies, you could be very happy. And the problem is like there hasn't been a stable place like that in any industry for many years now because of the cycle of unicorn chasing and all that. And so I think people like you have like because they don't have time all day to like look at every single new program or look out and do things. You just use what works because you've already spent too much time thinking about it, and you lose out on these opportunities of like something new that can two birds of one stone or three birds of one stone or all the birds of one stone. And even if it's like paying $40 a month for it, like maybe that's worth it. So
Yep. Very cool. So, if just maybe to close off, I like to give people something to think about when they're driving, but not so much that they lose concentration and run into
yeah.
things. So, when people are thinking about, hey, should I go for AI? What are just one or two questions that they could start by thinking about?
Um, I think a lot of it is just like, what are you looking to do? And I think you talk about like a replacing search because I think the old days of search, you would have to like do 5 independent searches and kind of like use your brain to stitch them together into the plan,
Mhm.
right? And LLMs, they kind of help you do that together, but their trust is a little wonky. So when you engage in them, you have to kind of like have a grain of salt and you have to ask it to prove itself, maybe ask it twice. And it's just very, it's just something to consider that you can't just like, you know, use these things like you used to use them as like, well, I read in Google that so and so actually won the presidency of the United States or something, and there's just like you have to question stuff and be like very info smart. And like like we were talking about, like some people just like I just want to read the newspaper in the morning and get the facts, and like I don't want to have to question if the newspaper is run by lizard people or whatever the email saying today. And that's just kind of like unfortunately the way of the land today with these things. So I encourage people to like be promiscuous with their tooling, but also understand like uh, you were talking to a microphone that goes to a company that would probably charge more for it if they could, and are probably charging way less than it's costing them, and it can go away at any time when the bubble bursts. And it's kind of depressing, but it's also kind of like, okay, I'm going to use these things strategically, and then I'm going to like use it to steal information down and pull it into my ecosystem and use it in the ways I want to use it versus being stuck in their playground and being forced to use Excel only for numbers.
So, I think it's a lot of it is not to let AI do the thinking for you. You still have to
Mm,
be discriminating and be sharp, and not just to give up all your individuality and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff in the midst of this. So,
Yeah. I mean, you can make AI, I think, be very obsequious and agree with you on anything. You can bully it all day. So don't even treat being tough as like, okay, I got him to admit the truth. It's just like it's a sarcastic parrot, and everything it says is a game of chance. And if you eliminate all the options where it can like lie, it'll eventually say the truth because it knows the truth is in there somewhere, hopefully. you know and uh and so it like that's what it is. It's not like, and it's not out to get you, and it has no opinions, and it has no cognition, and it's not like going to support something just because it agrees with you, because they made it very obsequious, and they made it like think you're praise you and for correcting them and stuff, because these guys who run these companies are weird.
yeah, I
So
think we need a reboot of the X Files,
mm,
if you remember
I
that.
mean, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I could go for a cigarette sometimes. So
So, Peter, thank you very much for your time today. That's lots of stuff to think about. And
yeah,
what I'll make sure we put in the program notes is, about your company and where to reach you and all those kinds of things. And
sure.
I hope our paths cross again sometime. So,
Yep, yep, for sure.
and David
Well,
Guthrie, sorry.
yeah, you're living the dream, and so everyone is listening. This is like realize what you're working for. And work smarter, not harder.
Well, thank you for your time. And David Guthrie, Discover Fresh Perspectives, here today with Peter Swimm. And I can assure you that next week there'll be someone different with some other diverse perspectives. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.